guys that are
Welcome to the latest edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, who I'm going to guess you probably didn't even sleep last night because you were so jacked up and excited from All-Star Weekend.
It was so good. As you can tell, I'm on the road. I have a nice little hotel room. I watched it 4 times. I haven't slept. I just put it on repeat and bathed in the magic.
Do I detect some sarcasm? This is our All-Star Weekend roundup. The league is going to be dark over the next couple of days. So when we come back on Thursday, we'll get into, the next portion of the NBA season. But we're going to go through what happened this weekend. There were some things, Bill, that I genuinely enjoyed. There were some things that I was like, I really don't know what's happening. And then there were other things that I thought were actively awful. I don't know where you want to start here. I guess we'll go in reverse order. We'll start with the new All-Star format from Sunday, where they decided to have 4 teams. It was Kenny's team and Shaq's team and Charles's team against Candace's Rising Stars team. We'll start there with Shaq's OGs versus Candace's Rising Stars team. And Bill, this is a component of the weekend that I thought actually worked. One, you had on Friday, you had the G League kids against the Rising Stars kids, and they tried really hard. Similarly, on Sunday, you had the Rising Stars kids against the Old Heads, and they tried really hard. And I thought this is actually not bad basketball.
So I wrote about this in an ill-fated column over the weekend where I expressed some hope that maybe there could be a little bit of effort and coolness and relevance injected into this event for the exact reason that you said. You have young guys, they're trying to prove themselves. They're not over it. I don't know how much you want to dive into who's to blame for the way the All-Star game is now. I think it's LeBron and these stars. You don't. Kobe tried. Michael tried. There was at least some energy. These young guys are a different generation. So I thought, this is going to – and actually the Friday night event was sort of interesting from a competitive perspective.
From a competitive
but it wasn't enough.
Perspective, that was the hardest anybody played basketball all weekend.
To try. But the thing is, here's my thing. So I'm with you and I agree. And I thought this would do so. If the only thing that I can point to is the young guys that somebody's tried and that was the exception to the rule, then obviously the whole damn thing is broken.
Yeah,
that should be the floor.
Yeah, that should be the floor. It wasn't the floor. So Tim Kalkami, who's a longtime editor and writer from the Bay Area, had an idea that I thought was pretty good, where, everybody's been trying to tinker with this thing forever. And Tim was like, well, look, if the young guys versus the old guys was the best part of the weekend, and I thought it was, then why don't we just make the All-Star game that? His idea was All-Stars, actual All-Stars, not Rising Stars, actual All-Stars under 30 versus actual All-Stars over 30. That doesn't sound like a terrible idea. Couldn't be any worse than what they've already tried, Bill.
All right, so you're meeting me at a point of no hope or belief. I had hope and belief. Whatever day a few days ago I wrote, it could work. It's a great idea. But as long as you have players who don't, in my estimation, didn't try, didn't play defense, don't care. And I know we'll get to this. You had the cheating scandal of was it last year when Anthony Edwards shot left-handed? You got a dunk contest from a guy that's not even in the NBA. It doesn't matter what the format is, in my opinion, until they have players who give a bleep, who give a shit. You have to give a shit for it to work, I think.
So, your mileage may vary on this. We're doing the show live on YouTube, and we have a comment from Only Morale who said that he liked the format, and you could see that the players tried hard. I thought they tried hard for a portion of it. But then in the middle of the final game, when it started off where one team got out to a big lead, but it looked like everybody was trying, but shots weren't falling. And then it ground to a halt. They went to a break, and they came out of the break, and all of a sudden there was this goodbye to the TNT inside the NBA guys, even though they're not going away. They're just not going to be on TNT anymore. But anyway, there was this whole big production where they were given their flowers and they were feted. And look, I love those guys. They are tremendous entertainment. But to grind the All-Star game to a halt, where I was like, holy hell, this break is still, and then they went to another commercial afterwards before coming back for basketball. Bill, what were they thinking? That was horrendous.
And earlier in the night, they did it for Mr. Beast. I only know who he is because I have teenage children. The guy that facilitated it was kind of cool when the random college dude made the 3 against Damian Lillard. But it was just, I don't want to watch this. Like, I want to watch the basketball. What are we doing here? It was a weird night all the way around.
And Steph and a whole bunch of guys afterwards got asked about it. Jaylen Brown, and they were like, yeah, like we were playing basketball and like we were all kind of into it. And then like we had to sit around for like 30 minutes and not do anything. And like, I know that there are half times, but this was a different thing. You're on the court, you're playing basketball. And then they're like, okay, we're going to take a timeout. And when we come back, we want you to get a bunch of fishing gear that Kevin Hart cooked up this lame joke. And you're going to go and turn Jack and Kenny and Charles and like be part of the props, but then go back on and stand over there for a while and like, don't do anything. And then you're going to play basketball later. Like, crap.
So you check in a lot on your basketball buddies. I checked in on my like sports buddies, right? Not just hey, what do we think of the All-Star game? And except for one guy, every guy wrote back, I turned that garbage off a long time ago. Yeah. It was so hard to watch for you and I. But here's the thing: if you're a casual fan, and this is the NBA's opportunity to sell the sport to you a little bit, and like the NFL's over, and so pulling some eyeballs. The start and stopping, the corniness, I thought the lack of competitiveness, just how the whole thing was cringe at almost every step of the way. If you had told me that this was an elaborate prank designed to just mess with all of us, like in 3 years, a documentary came out, like when Joaquin Phoenix pretended he was crazy, whatever that, I would 100% believe it because it was I don't even have words for how pissed off I was that I had to watch this thing.
I was hopeful that the basketball would be good. And I think if they hadn't put all the other garbage in the middle of the basketball, that the basketball would have been better than it has been recently. But so you and I had this reaction. Draymond Green, who was on the set for TNT, had a similar reaction, only he was a little bit more vociferous with his criticism of what happened. He said, this sucks. This ain't basketball. I had to work so hard to play on Sunday night of All-Star Weekend. And because ratings are down and the game is bad, we're bringing in rising stars. That's not a fix. Basically said it wasn't fair. Now, they go into the game, and Charles Barkley had a pretty good response, I thought. First of all, Draymond wasn't wrong. Draymond was not wrong that, like, that wasn't exactly what we were hoping for when we all said we want better basketball. Could have been better basketball. Again, they insert this other stuff inside. But Chuck's response was, well, hey, his generation messed up the game. That's why we're out here trying kamikaze stuff. Chuck was also right here. Like, you have a generation of guys who are like, this isn't cool. This isn't fair. And it's the same people who messed it up in the first place.
Look, I think that's exactly right. And I far be it for me to criticize LeBron James 18 times in a week. Excuse me. But this goes back to LeBron in some ways, not participating in the dunk contest. And sort of since then, the dunk contest became irrelevant. The game became less competitive. I think some of it overlaps with Kobe Bryant going away. I mean, I'm only going to compare this in a competitive sense, not all the awful things about the other guy I'm about to say, but Kobe Bryant kind of was Pete Rose, right? To the just, I don't care if it's an exhibition game. I'm going to go hard. I'm going to go act out. That it's over. You're right. And that falls to the players of this era who define it. LeBron, KD, Steph. Am I missing anybody? Like, it's their fault that the All-Star game sucks in Draymond. You're exactly right. And I just want to pinpoint to those three guys. And if I'm missing somebody, fine. But this is a league that always goes as its stars go. And these guys haven't cared enough, tried enough, told the other guys in the locker. I mean, Jordan was telling guys to freeze out Kobe in Kobe's All-Star game. And these guys, like, instead of like, you're reading a, Joker to Wemby, you're reading a book, you weirdo. How about it's, hey, guys, let's go out there and kick the shit out of the other team. And actually, that has been missing for a really long time.
How did you feel about LeBron's late scratch? Because LeBron was at All-Star weekend. He was hanging out with everybody. And then all of a sudden, like an hour or two before the game, we get word that LeBron is going to rest during the game. And that because of it was such a late scratch from All-Star, no Domantas Sabonis, no Norm Powell. Norm Powell was there. He could have just hopped in and gotten his first All-Star bid. He got a lot of criticism for that.
He should. The first load management in All-Star game history. He'll be ready for next year's All-Star game. He's playing the long game. The absolute selfishness of this, because all he had to do was say he wasn't going to play, 24 hours out when he clearly knew. And they could have found somebody. And that's the other thing about what you just said, John. How how do you expect guys to compete and this generation to care if your most important player thinks it's so meaningless that one is an all-star that it doesn't even occur to him that he should maybe inform everybody he won't play so another one of his colleagues can become an all-star? From LeBron, I mean, part of this is LeBron making it all about LeBron, and part of this is about, I think, LeBron maybe not recognizing, like, hey, man, this is a big deal. It may not be a big deal to you, but there are players out there who haven't gotten to do this or do this very often that you're taking a slot. I think it's really obnoxious and part of the deeper problem.
I'm being informed by producer Aaron that LeBron actually didn't get to town until Sunday afternoon, but still, yes, you could have given everybody a heads up that you weren't going to play.
Send a text message.
Yeah, you have a phone. You definitely have a phone. Yeah. By the way, a lot of this has fallen on LeBron. Ant didn't play either. Mark Spears reported that he sat out with a groin issue, and then he reported that he might have also sat out with a cold. So it's like shoulder shrug emoji. He's not going to play either. The whole thing was broken in a lot of different ways. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk about all the other. There's a whole bunch of swirling nonsense the entire weekend. You mentioned Chris Paul trying to game the system. You mentioned the slam dunk competition. There was an exorbitant amount of Kevin Hart and also a robot dog. We'll talk about all of that on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc.
We're under the lights in Jeddah.
I think we're in for a show.
A brand new circuit for 2025.
This is proper racing.
The first of 6 doubleheader weekends this season.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder, you can find us wherever you get your favorite podcast. Please download, subscribe, leave a review, and on Spotify, if you look below the play button on the Spotify app in full screen mode, you can tell us what you think or leave us a comment on the show. All right, so a lot of different ways we can go with this.
I just want to jump in, John, because swirling nonsense, producer Aaron just said it in the chat, and I thought it too, is so good. You describing the weekend as swirling nonsense is the best moment of the All-Star game. Your description of the swirling nonsense is the
very low bar. Let's talk about the swirling nonsense. Kevin Hart was everywhere, and I don't know who any of that was for. Mr. Beast made an appearance. There was some YouTube guy that was part of the slam dunk competition judging. I don't know who any of that was for. Like, I was sitting there, I was talking, you had checked in with your buddies, and your buddies said that they didn't tune it in. I was thinking about this last night. They decided to go up against SNL 50 at the same time as White Lotus, right? So all these things are happening in pop culture.
Lotus dropped too.
You had earlier in the day, like pretty much Sunday was wide open. You could have just had your event and played basketball and got people like us who like basketball or other people who like basketball who are watching or listening to the show right now to watch. Instead, they put together this production, stitch it together for, I'm not sure who that was for. Like all those YouTube, Twitch stream, whatever components. Who was that designed for?
This is what happens when you go to your team, right, in the NBA league offices, and you say, who has the dorkiest granddad? You do. Let's have him design it with – I don't know. And by the way, the Mr. Beast thing does appeal to 10, 11, 12-year-old boys, right? Like my son would know who that is. He couldn't stay with it. Like Henry was so excited, my 12-year-old son, about the All-Star game. And as I understand it, because Lori and the kids are with her parents, he just walked away. He's like, this is right. It didn't even hold him. And he likes Mr. Beast. I mean, and he loves half the players that are out there. So I don't know, man. So, okay, I'm really pissed off about last night. So like take all of this with a super grain of salt, like really do, because I don't know why. I just irrationally angry about having to watch that. When we get to the MVP talk, I'll tell you who my MVP was in connection to this. This reminds me of when I used to work at newspapers, and when the biggest mistake that any company can have is when they have contempt for or don't understand their actual customers. And that last night was the first night where I had this sort of negative thought about Adam Silver. It's, hey man, understand who your customers are. The product that you are supposed to be giving is basketball, sports fans, not Mr. Beast fans, not fans of incredible awkwardness. If there's a Kevin Hart fan club, they can go see him do live stand-up. Like there was no purpose to being a sports fan and watching this thing.
I'm generally indifferent to the positive side of indifferent on Kevin Hart. He's fine. I don't mind Kevin Hart.
I like Kevin
But
Hart.
in that context, it was so much Kevin Hart. And I was like, and there was a comment that we just had from somebody watching Brian on YouTube. Yeah, that's the one where he said 34 minutes of hoops in 3 hours. Nailed it. That's it.
That's it.
That was a 3-hour production where they played 34 minutes of basketball. What are we doing here, gang? Like there was just so much other stuff. And you know what? On Saturday, I actually thought there was components of Saturday that were fine and compelling. Sunday was largely, with the exception of portions of basketball that were interrupted by the swirling nonsense, like pretty much unwatchable. Like, and that's a tough ask if you're the NBA. Everybody knows that you're trying to fix this thing. And not only did you fix it, but you broke it more. Like, you had an idea for the tournament. Tournament wasn't a bad idea. I could see how it could work, but you ruined the idea by cramming all the other stuff in there.
Well, so here's what I think. Right. Okay. So I think there's two different groups that are at fault for this, and they're at fault in major ways. One is the NBA for the production decisions we're talking about, and it was awful. And then I'll just go back to the players too, who don't try. I should ask somebody in the league office. I would imagine they anticipated the possibility that guys weren't going to try very hard, and they were trying to make the event matter aside from the basketball. But that is why we're there, is the basketball. Like, the NBA can't work around. If the basketball's not good, the NBA can't work around that by having Mr. Beast and Kevin Hart and 80 minutes of awkwardness. I understand where the NBA is coming from, in the sense that I think they anticipated that the basketball might not be great, and we're trying to make it a big thing. But that's not what we're here for. You got to fix the main thing's got to be the main thing, and that's the actual hoops. You got to fix that.
Yeah, the main thing unfortunately wasn't. I want to get to the Saturday stuff in a second. You mentioned the MVP. What was your thoughts on MVP?
My MVP was my remote control. When I was able to turn this abomination off, it was in fact, I have it right here. It's in a place of honor. I mean, I don't know. Like, I actually didn't care, but it felt like more of a Jason Tatum. Like, it should have been Tatum than Steph. But I understand it's a different kind of event. But I love Steph. But even that felt wrong to me.
I forgot about that. This is another thing. So they finally get a little bit of momentum, and the game restarts, and they're playing, and Steph's hitting the half-court shots, right? And they have this, play to 40. There's no clock, right? And Steph is bringing it up to have the game winner, and they call an 8-second violation on him. And I was like, oh my God, they have now they put the final nail in the coffin that is All-Star Weekend. I don't know what that ref was thinking, but like, you finally have you're building to a moment here, and you call it. And Steph was like indignant about it too. Like, you could see him shaking his head. Like,
it was just stupid.
They got everything wrong about that.
Everything about. So I am the contrarian here, because I do not think the dunk contest was spectacular. We can get into it. I do not think the Chris Paul. Oh my God. The Chris Paul and I are not best friends. Like, if I've been trying to be nice, like, the Chris Paul influence on Victor Wembanyama is I'm not a fan of that. No, I like nothing that went on.
This is where we differ. Let's take one more quick break, because if there was anything good from this weekend, it was the dunk contest, and it was Chris Paul being Chris Paul and not being able to help himself. One more quick break, and we'll debate that on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale. Ronaldo. Wonderful goal.
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
To Beyond the Arc, you can find us on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. And then the little bell symbol, you click on that, you'll get notified when we go live. We are live most days, Monday through Friday, noon Eastern. Plus, we've got some live shows coming up for post-game stuff. All right, Bill, Saturday, Chris Paul's antics. I'm sitting there, I'm watching. I had HQ duty. I get a text message from you. You were not happy about Chris Paul deciding to try to game the skills competition. Now, Victor Wembanyama said that it was his idea. I don't believe that, but even if it was, there's no way he would have tried to execute that strategy without Chris Paul as his teammate. But for people who missed it, basically, they decided they weren't going to take shots. The rule book says you have to take 3 valid shots in the shooting components, and instead they just kind of like threw the ball as quick as they could and tried to run through the obstacle course. They got disqualified for it, not surprisingly. Immediately afterwards, Chris Paul was indignant. A league official comes over and he shows the rules to Chris Paul, and Chris Paul is arguing with this guy about it. I thought it was hilarious. It got a lot of people. Yes, I thought it was, because it's such a Chris Paul. He's 39 years old. Yeah. He's a multi-time All-Star, a first ballot Hall of Famer. He was named to the 75 best players of all time team. And he goes to All-Star weekend to try to find a loophole in the rule book. That is the most Chris Paul thing that's ever happened.
So here's the thing. It is funny. It is eye-popping. It is a what the bleep moment, and people are talking about it. But it also underscores what garbage the whole thing is, because Chris Paul doesn't take this thing seriously enough to respect just the competition, because it's not a real competition. And it is the most Chris Paul thing ever. I don't even dislike Chris. He doesn't like me, but he is difficult behind the scenes at past stops. I don't know anything about the Spurs. I haven't asked. I don't care. He's right. I probably should care now because of his potential impact on Wemby. But you got a little bit of a glimpse of Chris can be indignant, as I understand it, from people with other teammates, with coaches. It's my way or the highway. And this is some insight into that because, hey, man, it's in the rule book and it's obnoxious. Like, stop. The words you're looking for are my bad. Like, those are the words, Chris. So I'm with you. It's funny, but it also just the biggest thing of the weekend is arguably Chris Paul leading Wembanyama down an Anakin Skywalker path and a farce. Good. We have a major problem.
Let's take this to its logical conclusion here. Let's say they hadn't been DQ'd and they were allowed to continue. Would they have then continued with that strategy? And would the other teams have then adopted it? So now nobody's really shooting and just running. Right, what did Chris think was going to happen here if they had allowed him to do this thing? Like,
I think he must have anticipated that they would just say no more. I don't know. This is what happens when people think they're smarter than everybody else, right? Like, hey, but the thing is, I don't want Victor Wembanyama being this person. And last year, remember how pissed off Wemby got when Anthony Edwards was doing his thing left-handed, because they wasn't the skills last year, because they kept changing it, where they did internationals or young. I don't remember what. It was something. They were teamed up.
Change them up.
And Wembanyama was all pissed off. So, like, the guy obviously cares and wants to win it. So now you've got this guy 2 years in a row basically not being able to succeed, once because someone doesn't care enough, and the other time because his teammate cares so much, he says, you know what we'll do on live TV? We'll cheat the system.
Well, I will say that Wemby did try hard on Sunday and looked to be enjoying himself, so that part was good. Let's talk about the dunk competition. I thought, Mattis Buzelis and Andre Jackson Jr. did not acquit themselves well. However, Mac McClung, now the only 3-time champion in NBA history, and also Stephon Castle did pretty well here. I'll let you go first. I liked both Mac and Stephon Castle once we got rid of the other two, the dead weight component, but you weren't really buying it.
I mean, look, the dunks are cool. It's a 2-person dunk contest. It's the NBA slam dunk contest, and one of the players is not an NBA player.
He has made more money in his career from dunk competition.
I know.
A little over 300,000 than he has from basketball, about 132,000, which is remarkable.
If I want to see that cool sort of circus act hoops, I'll go to the Harlem Globetrotters, which I've done, right? Like, this is an NBA event. He's not an NBA player, man.
I've heard people mention that he's only played 5 NBA games. However, he is NBA adjacent. It's not like it isn't the Harlem Globetrotters and it isn't a YouTube guy. He is affiliated with an NBA franchise's G League team. And by the way, at what point does this start to become humiliating for him? At what point is it you're what is that line from Wedding Crashers? Make me a bike clown. I mean, that's what it is. He's just okay. So remember when Blake Griffin dunked over the Kia? They had the NBA.
I was at that game.
Of the two, that Blake Griffin dunk was one of the most overrated dunks of all time because he went over the hood. This dude, who is my height, same size as Mac McClung, this dude jumped over the top. Threw down a dunk. I can barely climb into my car, let alone jump over one. I think that's pretty impressive. Plus,
it was amazing.
One where he had a double dunk. One guy was spinning on a hoverboard. I don't know why, but he threw down 2 balls on that one. And then the other one was he dunked over Evan Mobley and tapped the ball on the rim. And you could see him like focus on it and tap it and throw it down. I thought some of his dunks were remarkable.
He's a professional dunker. I mean, he's not here. By the way, I'm glad you brought up the Blake Griffin Kia thing. I actually thought about this the other day. I want to go back and write it. I was at that. If you go back and watch, Griffin clearly shouldn't have advanced to the next round. And they basically he had a terrible dunk and they advanced him because they had a Kia sitting in the back that they had to pull out and have. So that whole thing was a farce. If you go back and you watch
I didn't know that. This is such a great conspiracy. I love this.
Go back and watch. I remember I was sitting with Jackie McMullen, I think, and I was just, what the hell? So look, the dude, present day, he can dunk. He is, and you're right. The jump over the car was the real, he actually went over. He's amazing, but he's not an NBA player, even if he's NBA adjacent. And there are professional dunkers out there, and that's not what this should be. And so I don't want to take shots at him. It's not his fault. And I'm not really mad at Adam Silver, I guess, in the league, because if guys won't do it, it just reinforces how put out I am. I'm going back to the same stuff that the LeBrons of the world won't participate or did in the past. Remember, LeBron once, if I remember right, agreed to it and then backed out like some kind of a baby at one of the.
So he was asked about it, and Rachel Nichols said that LeBron responded, "There's no part of me that has regrets about not doing it." So not surprising. Let me just put LeBron to the side for a second. Stephon Castle, I thought, had some really good dunks too. This is the final case for Mac McClung actually being good for the dunk contest, because I'm going to run this past you afterwards. Me, a lot of people were like, okay, the guy can dunk. That was pretty impressive. He jumped over a car, including John Morant and Giannis. John Morant said, Mac might make me decide to dunk. And then Giannis responded, if you do it, I'll do it with you, with the 100 emoji. Bill, one, you've got two superstars here, at least noticing this thing happening and kind of fainting in the direction of maybe I'll believe it when I see it. Do you believe that either of them will at any time get anywhere close to sniffing the dunk contest?
I want to believe it. So here's the thing. If Mac can get these guys to do it and real stars to do it, and then it becomes a thing again, then I will fully apologize to him and call him he'll be the resurrection specialist of the dunk contest. I was going to ask you, if you could draft 3 guys next year to be in the dunk contest against Mac, it'd be what? Ja for sure.
And
Anthony Edwards
and Amin Thompson.
Okay, I'm here. But the problem with Ant is this is sort of he doesn't care or try, or in some cases play. At a certain point, he shouldn't be an all-star. I was thinking about this over the weekend. If you're not going to try last year, not going to play this, it should be enough. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, the thing is, the dunk contest.
If you had full effort, Ant, Ja can't not do effort. That's part of his problem. If Ant was doing what he does in a game and going full force towards the basket, and Amin Thompson is one of the most athletic human beings I've ever seen do anything. If you could get, full effort Ant with those two guys and Mac McClung, now we're cooking.
See, and then the other thing is you get one epic, like Mac McClung's going for his back to back next year, and then real stars emerge to try to stop this guy. That's compelling. Yeah. That can sort of rejuvenate, get the engine running. And because it's the other thing about the dunk contest, we were talking earlier about the 3.5 hours of crap and 34 minutes of basketball. The dunk contest doesn't need a whole lot of crap. Just go out there and dunk the bat. It can be short and amazing, right? It can be, because what the NBA is looking for are moments. They're looking for things that rise above the din that people can hold on to and go, oh, the NBA, I got to pay attention to that. And the dunk contest is the easiest way, I think, to do it if you can get the right guys to participate.
So you're saying more dunks and more basketball and less robot dogs, if I'm hearing you correctly?
Less robot dogs, less. I like Kevin Hart. A lot less Kevin Hart. Yeah. Less awkward TNT. Even the TNT banter was awkward.
They made Shaq walk out with the robot dog, and he's like, if that thing bites me, I'm going to be really pissed off. I don't know. There was just a lot of things that happened over the weekend that I was very confused by. All right, I think that's enough of All-Star Weekend. We talked about it a lot. That it was perplexing. There were some moments. Look, this is the last thing I'm going to say about this. So Adam Silver gave his annual press conference on Friday, and he was asked about the ratings, not surprisingly, right? And people who don't like the NBA love to dunk on the ratings. You and I have discussed this. There are different metrics that you can use for how much interest there is in the NBA. One is traditional ratings, other is streaming numbers. But what I think is much harder to put your finger on, that the NBA is very good at, and not always because they intend to, is the conversation. Around the trade deadline, they dominated the conversation during the Super Bowl. This weekend, not always for the better, but they dominated the conversation about, like,
did they?
Well, I mean, everybody was talking about how broken the thing was.
If you dominate by everyone saying this thing is stupid and sucks, I think, and Draymond Green, we need to do a whole podcast on how full of crap Draymond Green is, by the way, someday. I want to, because, like, anyway, when Draymond Green has this platform as a current player and a future Hall of Famer and says it sucks, I mean, you're right, but I think you don't want to become the butt of the joke.
No, you're right.
That's the exception.
All I'm saying is they do get attention. It's just not always the kind that they intended. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We're going to be back on Thursday. We're going to talk about basketball. There's roughly a quarter to a third left of the season. We'll do a little look ahead for the remainder of that. We'll be live right here on YouTube. You can find us at Beyond the Arc CBS. But for now, for our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, I am John Gonzalez. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday.